I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
And we want to say welcome to those who have joined us on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And we have the voice of our co-host, and in a moment we'll have his face live on screen. We're going to take a quick break and come right back. And today we want to talk about the changing roles of males and females. And is there a different way we need to deal with our children and preparing them for adulthood? It seems as if our culture has changed, our society has changed. Perhaps there's a different way we should prepare our children for that very important bond of husband and wife. And perhaps we should prepare them educationally so that they know how to function not only in careers, but also in household management. So many couples are not able to survive because one or both of them have not learned how to work as a partnership. It's something that needs to be taught. So, what are the things that we should be teaching our children as we raise them so that they can continue with a cohesive family? And is there something different we should be teaching them, different than what we may have learned? And we want to say good morning to Susan Lutzhurch. We certainly appreciate that. Yes, here we go again. So, for those who are watching, of course, we've got a call in number that we're sharing with you as we expand to a new radio platform, the On Air Radio Network. And we're inviting you to call in at 312 721 6428. That's 312 721 6428. And you don't have to press one. You just call in and we'll open your mic and you will get an opportunity to speak. And we'll be right back after this quick message. So we invite you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. Shed a little more light on the situation here. And our co-host will be joining us shortly. And we're grateful for the work that our co-host has done in giving us a whole year's worth of men-only programs where we had a chance to hear the voices of men and hear some of their feelings as we look at how our relationships have changed over time. The generation that many of us represent now, those perhaps over 40, over 50, and even over 60, we had expectations about family life. And we had belief systems that we followed that taught us certain roles. Well, the world has changed. And if we want to maintain families that stay together, there's something that we have to change about our preparation of our children for lifelong unions. First, we want to ask the question, have the roles of men and women changed? More men and women are cohabitating, and often without the legal bond of marriage, simply because they come from families that they saw the pain of divorce. And the idea was, I don't want to go through that pain. When we get ready to split, we'll just split. And sometimes they do just split. So, first of all, does marriage make people try harder to stay together? Or does it merely keep people together who need to separate? That's the first question. And we want you all to call in. You can give us a call. And that number is 312-721-6428. It's crawling across your screen. We want to hear from you. And of course, you are able to see us on our Facebook and YouTube channels. And also, you can write in your comments, as some have done already so far. And we want you to go to our website, The Female Solution. Every host is live on their Facebook and YouTube channels, in addition to the Female Solution Facebook page. And also, we are offering multiple platforms for audio as well as visual. And you will be able to hear us on Podbean. And Blog Talk has had challenges, which has given us an opportunity to expand to our on-air network, which soon to be launching the on-air TV network, which will give you a chance to see our programs on your big screen at home. And you also will get an opportunity to hear us on the on-air radio network. So we want you to join us and continue to be a part of the solution. as we delve into the issues. And every Wednesday, our goal is to help in the healing process of our families by examining the ways that we come together and choose to stay together or choose to break apart. But the foundation of every community is the family. And when you have broken families, you have broken communities, which leads to a broken economy and many other broken systems. So if we can repair the family, we can repair all the other systems that are supported by the family. And sometimes that means addressing the individual. So I believe we're connected by audio to our co-host as he's working on the visual connection. Are you able to hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, we can hear you too. We can hear you too. So we'll continue to listen to you as you work on your visual connection. But one question I have for you, because you've done a series of men-only discussions, and we, the women, have had a chance to hear a lot of things that we were not aware of. And one of the things that sticks out is the pain that men feel when their first relationship falls apart. And usually that's, when you're very young and very sensitive, and yet the society doesn't really allow men to discuss feelings and emotions. So when that first woman breaks your heart, that kind of sets some things in motion for a lot of men. In your opinion, do you think that once a man has experienced perhaps a disappointment when a woman has hurt his pride, his ego, his feelings, his sense of self-worth, do you think it's difficult for men to trust again? And does that affect the quality of the relationships that they engage in after that point? Because one of the things that you all have talked about was how older men have kind of schooled younger men on kind of how to play women. And that's a deep wound that we're all carrying. And that has an impact on our ability to trust each other enough to build those bonds of family. So what are your thoughts on that? Does that first heartbreak kind of sour men on deeper emotional ties and make them reluctant to truly bond with a woman on a permanent basis? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Well, first, let me say grand rising to the Female Solution family. It's a wonderful day. Almighty God have blessed us with another day. We get another chance to do it better. Praise be to God.
Absolutely.
And I want to state that life is not guaranteed. There are no guarantees in life. We will experience disappointment, setback, failure. That's just a part of life. But we shouldn't give up on an effort just because it didn't work the first time. If that was the case, we would still be sitting in caves,
Yes.
Right? Running our food down on foot,
Yes.
So that's just a part of life, and how to not get stuck in that. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. And one of the greatest investments that we make as human beings is that we invest in each other. Now, we know investments are most experts will inform you that it is a risk. It's not guaranteed that your investment will pay off, but there is a risk factor. So due to the risk factor, invest wisely. Invest wisely. If you were going to invest in a company, I would suggest that you thoroughly that company or that corporation or whatever the venture that you're getting ready to invest in. You should have a thorough knowledge of that company before investing in it. Likewise with human beings. We invest in each other. You know, anytime you spend time, which is most precious, there's nothing more valuable other than God, his messengers, and the revelations that come to us. There's nothing more important to us than time, because time is life. As we spend time, we are spending our life. So we must take the due diligence to invest wisely. And if it does not work, that doesn't mean that you pick up your marbles and you go back home. No, opportunity is always wide open. And you make another sound investment. Don't let that make us have a fear to invest and to invest in each other. But it requires a very diligent inquiry and investigation when you are folding your life over into the life of another person. I think it's a big mistake to stop or discontinue investing in the most valuable part of creation, and that is the human being. We should never give up on the human being. Things don't work all the time. That's just life. That's just life. But never give up investing in that which brings you profit, in that which will enrich your life. The proper mate enriches your life. You know, mentioning investments, when someone is just cohabitating, they are investing in that situation. There is not a guarantee that you will be able to retrieve your material and your money, your investments.
That's true.
So don't give up on the human being. Don't give up. We are all different. We all have unique qualities, which makes it exciting, and very pleasurable. So I have been married 3 times, you know.
Hey, experience.
So, and then, you know, when I look back, especially my first marriage, and I look back at it, I was so young, I didn't know anything, you know, nor did she, but still, we are very close friends even now, today. No doubt about it. We're very close friends. So I would advise us as human beings, don't give up on humanity. Don't give up on the human being. But invest wisely, and if it does not work out, well, step back, take a breath, but be willing to invest once more. The profits are so great. So rich.
I think that's maybe the message that people who have had disappointments need to hear, that when it does work, it's a worthwhile investment. There's an aspect of spiritual growth that you experience when you have that special bond with someone and you develop that total trust in someone, that partnership where you're each other's emotional support. And I think we need to have more definitions of what that relationship is, because so many people, they don't know all of the aspects of that partnership if they have not witnessed it, if they have not seen 2 people in their household work together to work out problems, to cooperate and the raising of the children and the managing of the household and the supporting of each other's work goals. You know, if you need to share a car, or you need to take turns picking up children, or you need to take turns cooking dinner, or whatever the case may be, if they haven't seen the process of sharing responsibilities, they don't know that that's what it takes for it to work. I've seen a lot of couples break apart because one person is carrying the load of everything, and the other person simply was not raised, they were not reared, they were not trained, they were not prepared to function as an adult, an independent adult in a household. Someone who maybe came from their parents' home right into a relationship where they move in with someone, and they never went through the process of learning how to be responsible for paying for bills, for developing a budget where you know how much you should spend based on what your income is. Or maybe they never really learned, maybe they had a child but never really learned how to parent a child, how to guide a child, and all they did was just express their frustration at the child, screaming at the child, calling the child names, hitting the child, and they never learned how to properly guide and teach a child. Maybe they just never had that preparation from their parents for whatever reason. Maybe they grew up in a household that was extremely dysfunctional, and the parents were either absent or emotionally immature themselves. So you have a lot of people that are attracted to people, maybe for the physical attributes or whatever, or maybe that person seems nice in terms of a pleasant personality, but they're missing some fundamental skills, some fundamental life skills. And so they become a big disappointment when they try to form a partnership. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Naima, you mentioned do we have to change how we are raising our children? There has been a huge shift change from years ago. I'm talking about years ago, quite a good while ago. As I would say over one generation. I'll limit it at that. But we want our children, we want to prepare them for responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You can start off small, a small task, like help mama set the table, that's small.
Mm-hmm.
Separate our laundry by colors. These are young children.
Mm-hmm.
You are giving them responsibility. And then don't fail to give an approval and affirmation upon the completion of a task. Tell them how well they did and how much you appreciate them. And you're a big boy now. You're able to separate our laundry by colors. You learned your colors, right? Yes, I sure did. Well,
yes.
I really appreciate that. What a wonderful job you have done. That is preparing them for the responsibilities of life. We got to the place where we think that children are just meant for play, but just go out and play.
Yes.
Buy them all kind of games to play, and but that's not that tends to bleed over into their adulthood. They're still playful.
Right.
They're still just not taking life seriously and just playing. But we must prepare our children for the challenges of life that's ahead of them. And it requires responsibility. It does. It requires responsibility and an appreciation for each other. So I can remember my father used to give me responsibility.
Mm.
It was my job to carry out the trash. And I remember he would come home from work, trash can overflowing.
Wow.
And he would call me.
Why didn't you take out the trash?
Right.
Yes.
I shouldn't have to. Now, here is where it really clicked in. When he said, I shouldn't have to continuously tell you, you see it yourself.
Yes. And it's your job.
So that breeds some responsibility in me. I'm going to be and not just because he said so, because I accept the responsibility myself. That's breeding an inner quality of being responsible for something, a task, or whatever, the challenges of life, even the investment in my wife and my children. So it begins early. We have to teach our children responsibility, starting off very small, very something very light, but let your praise be very heavy. Let your affirmation be resounding. And they feel good about themselves, and they feel good about the task that they have completed. So that's my offering, that we start small, begin to teach our children responsibility and the affirmation of them being responsible.
I think that is the number one thing that parents must do. And when parents don't do it, then that's when it's felt when that child becomes an adult and they attempt to form a partnership with someone. They attempt to be in a relationship with someone, and they intend to be in a household with someone, and they have not learned responsibility. This is a complaint I hear over and over and over again. And it's not just men complaining about women. It's not just women complaining about men. There's an expectation that your partner is supposed to do something, and they don't do it. And you're angry, and they're annoyed that you're expecting them to do it, and you're angry that they don't do it. Whether it's men expecting women to cook because maybe that's how they grew up, and women expecting men to take out the trash because that's how they grew up. And so you have people with expectations based on what they saw in their household, but that person's parents didn't give them that responsibility and didn't teach them how to fulfill that responsibility. So they're coming into a relationship without any skills or knowledge or expectations of doing this. And their spouse gets angry because the expectation was, this is what you're supposed to do. You're my spouse. You're my mate. You're my partner. We're supposed to work together in this household. You're not doing your part. And whoever didn't learn how to clean up after themselves, the person who leaves things all over the place and doesn't think to pick things up, the other person is angry. You see the mess all over the floor. Why aren't you picking up after yourself? And maybe that person grew up in a household where someone else did it. And if you're a parent and you're constantly picking up after your child, you are not helping them. You are creating a problem for whoever they end up with in life or try to end up with, because you have not given them the responsibility of cleaning up after themselves. So it used to be assumed, a lot of men in our generation assumed that women would be the ones who did the picking up because that's what their mothers did for their fathers. Things have changed. Things have changed. And when we failed to incorporate the change in our culture and our raising of our children, we're setting up our children for failed relationships. I don't know how many times I've seen couples divorce because perhaps things changed financially. Maybe the expectation was that the man would be earning all of the income and the woman would be at home. Well, maybe things changed and the woman ended up the one earning the income and the man ended up being the one at home. But he was at home and he was not prepared with home making skills. He was not prepared with home management skills. So the woman comes home from work and the house is a mess. There's no dinner prepared. She's angry. the man's expectation is, because maybe his mother came home from work or whatever, or was at home all the time. But anyway, she did all the cleaning, she did all the cooking. And this wife is supposed to come home and do the same thing. Well, of course, the wife is furious. She's like, I worked. What did you do? Well, he didn't know. He was not prepared with that responsibility. He was not prepared with that role. So he didn't do those things. And when couples don't make the adjustment during those economic situations, usually it ends in divorce or a very angry, bitter marriage. And I've seen it over and over and over again. So it seems to me that in our intelligence, we need to prepare all children to become responsible adults and knowing how to manage finances, knowing how to take care of themselves. Because even if you're married to a breadwinner, at some point that person's going to pass away. And unless you die together in an automobile crash or something like that, you will leave this world separately. And one of you is going to be left with the responsibility of taking care of yourself. So I think culturally, given the realities of our world today, the responsibility that parents have is to teach all of the children household management skills. That means cleaning up after yourself, cooking for yourself, knowing how to make a bed, sweep a floor, wash dishes. All children should learn these skills, and all children should be prepared for taking care of themselves. A skill, a talent, an interest, something that you contribute to the society that allows you to receive payment so that you can take care of your financial responsibilities. All people need to be prepared to be responsible adults. And we as parents, we are failing in that. The reason why our children's relationships are not working. That's my thought. We've got a few comments here we'll share. We'll take a quick break after that. Some people that passed away that were loyal listeners, and our loyal listener, Pianki, is reminding us that. And so on this last Wednesday of the year, we want to acknowledge those who are no longer in the flesh with us. Demetrius Johnson, he passed away over a year ago. And so we certainly honor him and his life during his time in physical existence on the earth. We appreciate that, Pianki. Also, Wallace Red, longtime listener and frequent guest, he passed away this year as well, several months ago. We did get a chance to announce it, I believe, but he's in Texas, and of course, I didn't get a chance to attend funeral services. It was difficult during the pandemic years. So many people transitioned, and then some funeral homes weren't engaging in large services out of fear of germ spreading. So it wasn't as easy to honor people during that period of the pandemic, and there we did have some transitions that we didn't get a chance to focus a lot on. So thank you, Pianki, for reminding us that Wallace Red is another one who transitioned, and was a long-time listener and frequent guest. And I think he's been on your Men Only discussions a few times, Kareem, as well. So we appreciate him. He, had a radio show, and was one that was expounding upon us living a loving life with each other. And we appreciate him being a part of those communicators that are helping to raise global consciousness. And we've got some comments here also from a longtime listener, Andrew Nelson Bay. And of course, he says, I know to effectively become a billionaire, and I contend that money answers all things, and soon money will not be a problem for me and my friends. Well, there is that belief that money can solve things. We'll talk about that. And he said, I personally like and trust David Meyer, the Rothschild, whose father arguably the wealthiest man in the whole of Europe. I anticipate David Meyer, the Rothschild, to finance his. Okay, he's looking at running for public office, which for that you do need money. sometimes. But I want to take a look at the whole money issue. We got to take a short break, but afterwards, I want to take a look at, should we be teaching different expectations about money? Often, well, in during my generation and before, and even now, women are urged to look at a man based on his financial means. And there are times people would go into very unloving relationships simply because a person had money. And does money really solve everything? And is it better to choose the person who has the best financial condition that they're living in, or is it better to choose someone who you feel the greatest love for, even if you might have to struggle together financially? That's always a challenging question for women, because financial stability is desirable, but if the person doesn't treat you well, does that help that they have money? Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about that. And I'll get your thoughts about that, Kareem. And of course, we invite those who are watching us to write in their comments. And you can call us at 312-721-6428 and voice your opinions. And we'll be right back after this quick break. So stick and stay. Don't stray away. Be back in a moment. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif, along with our co-host Kareem Hamid. And we are looking at what we've learned over the year. And we appreciate our co-host Kareem Hamid facilitating the men-only discussions so that we could get a better view of how men think. And we've learned some things over the years, and it's time for us to realize some things as a culture, as a human family, as we move toward a more egalitarian approach to life. We need to prepare our children for healthy partnerships, long-lasting partnerships, families that work, families that are functional and not dysfunctional. We need to repeat those things that work and not repeat those things that don't work. So before the break, Brother Nelson brought up the issue of money. And for many men, the thought is, if I have enough money, I can buy a female that I want. And sometimes wealth can make relationships easier. That's one less thing to argue about. And sometimes money can create a power dynamic that is unhealthy. It becomes a means of control. And for many women who did not prepare themselves to take care of themselves, they got into relationships with someone who could take care of them. and they found someone who was very controlling and sometimes unkind. And they stayed there in those relationships because they feared not being able to take care of themselves. That was the dynamic in too many relationships for too many women for too many generations. And that needs to end. A lot of it ended when women went into the workforce, but sometimes the attitude is still there. So, how do we have a healthy preparation of men to be responsible men, and at the same time, women to take responsibility for themselves as well as adults who are capable of contributing to the society? And how do we help both people to learn co-parenting skills so that both have child rearing skills and can work together in this new cultural expression that respects both male and female? Is that something that can be taught, in your opinion, Kareem?
Yes. We have to get rid of the prefix that we use concerning our maintenance.
Mm.
There is no such thing as women's work.
Mm.
Women's work. We need to drop that. That there is no designation of a task that is just primarily for the female. We need to get rid of the prefix on a man's work. We have to stop pigeonholing ourselves, putting ourselves in very restrictive borders and barriers, which does not allow total freedom. The Creator has said to us concerning the equality of male and female. He has said to us that the only advantage the male has is his physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
Every other strength, mentally, emotion, all of that, they are equal. Now I know there are some strong women, but there are exceptions,
Yes.
Of course, you know what I'm saying? I'm not
Right, right.
But the vast majority, the man has greater physical strength. But that is where it ends at.
Mm-hmm.
He does not think better than her. He does not plan better than her. She should be able to enter into any field that is of her interest. There's no such thing as women's work. I live by myself, and I'm able to take care of myself.
Mm.
I'm able to wash my own dishes. That's me taking care of myself. That's not a woman's work. That's the responsibility of being human.
Absolutely.
And maintaining oneself. So that expectation that, I expect you to mop the floors, wash the dishes, do the laundry, do this or do that. That should be a shared responsibility. Thank God I know how to cook. And some of the best chefs, this is no knock on women, but some of the best chefs
are men.
Are men.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cooking is not a woman's job. It's a job that requires skill.
Tell me you're a full-grown man and you can't prepare a meal for yourself?
Mm.
What? Come now. So we have to stop this designation of certain tasks as seen as gender-based. I love Prophet Muhammad. We pray the prayers and the peace upon him. He was seen sweeping the floors in his house.
Yes.
He was seen going to the market to shop, to get the day's meal or the week's meal, whatever.
Yes.
And he's the best man that God created. The best. So we have to get rid of these artificial barriers that have been placed on us by way of task. and we expect certain things from certain genders that we can do ourselves or either partner in it. We have to be cooperative. So there's a lot of cleanup work we have to do concerning our language and how we think. And how we think.
Absolutely.
It's just that simple. You know, no one have to clean up behind me. I'm a full-grown man. No, for real. And it begins in the home. Well, pick your socks up off of that floor.
Yeah.
Don't treat your belongings like that. Don't treat yourself like that.
Right. Well,
that's just part of life. That is life, responsibility.
Absolutely. And that's one of those things that, I mean, children learn what they live. They observe who cleans up, or if anybody cleans up. I've been in homes where nobody cleaned up. It was a mess all the time. And it's like, okay, when do you all clean this house? And the attitude is like, well, for what? It'll just get messed up again. And that's such a level of disorganization. Mentally, it's hard to organize your thoughts when you're living in the midst of disorder. And you will find that it has an impact on everything from being able to be prompt, be organized, to remember things, just functioning day to day if your household is a mess. And I have visited friends where no one cleans, and it's always junky, always disorganized, always a mess. And that's just how they live. So if that's how you grew up, how will you know that someone is supposed to clean? Actually, everybody's supposed to clean. So this again, it points to the level of functionality that we grow up in. And sometimes if you grow up in a dysfunctional household, you have to discover that your household is dysfunctional. And how do you do that unless you go and visit other people? If you grow up in a house where it's a slop, you're just living in a mess, you don't know that people live in a clean house all the time unless you have friends or relatives that you visit and their house is clean and orderly. And this is the way they live. And you're able to see that they didn't just clean up because we were coming over. This is how they live. And then you come to understand, oh, this is how people are supposed to live. And just watching TV doesn't do it, because TV is unreal. So you don't really see that as reality. So you really have to experience what a functioning household looks like if you grew up in a dysfunctional family. If you grew up in a family where there was always chaos, how do you know how to create order? You don't know. And this is the challenge that a lot of our young people have today in trying to form healthy relationships, coming out of unhealthy households where people either had substance abuse problems or anger management problems or simply emotional instability problems. And if in your household that you grew up in, there's always arguing, always yelling, always screaming, always fighting, even physical violence, how do you know that this is not a healthy atmosphere to live? Unless you experience something else. So that's the challenge that we have. We have generations of dysfunction. And somehow you have to learn how to be a functioning adult, even if you were not taught. So the question is, how does a person, first of all, know what a functioning household looks like if they grew up in dysfunction? And then how do they learn the behaviors that make it possible to create a functioning household, a healthily functioning household? Let's just take one thing, arguing. People assume that that's a normal way of settling disputes, screaming, hollering, name calling, arguing, threatening divorce. there are people who live their lives that way, and they think that's a normal relationship because that's what they lived growing up. How does a person, first of all, recognize that that is dysfunctional? And secondly, how do they unlearn those behaviors? Does it require marriage counseling, or what would you suggest?
But some people, that's their norm, and no one speaks to them about that. I have experienced over my lifetime. I have known a couple. Every time you're around them, they're sniping at each other. They're arguing. And everyone knows that this couple here, well, no, don't invite them because
You coming with all that arguing? No.
So there has to be, sometimes there needs to be an intervention. Some people say, well, no, this is my narrative, this is private, you can't tell me what to do, and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
But marriage is bigger than those two individuals,
Right.
It's a life choice. And there's nothing wrong with if you are a trusting friend and how you approach them, is very important concerning how they treat one another. Do you love her, man, for real? Yeah, I love her. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not in it, but I'm just saying, man, you act like you can't stand it.
What kind of love is that?
Right. Yeah, you act like you can't stand it. What kind of love it? Or either, girl, do you really love him? Yeah, but see, he blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Negative identification of your mate.
Yes. A lot of mean things said, angry, insults. How's that love?
Right.
But I see that all the time. I see that in couples that act like they hate each other, but they're just,
they're still together. They're living in hell.
Yes.
That's a hell they created for themselves.
Yes.
For real. I mean, it is ridiculous. But if you have never, and you have to be very wise with this. If there had never been someone to speak to them about that, but it really requires caution and wisdom, no doubt about that. Because some people are very, very, very insular concerning their marriage, So
Absolutely.
it takes a trusting friend, a family member, somebody to speak to them so that they begin to appreciate one another. Listen to the good attributes that you see in him or in her. That's because bad people bring about bad people.
That's true.
And that's the norm.
That's unfortunately true.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find a way to end the cycle because we can't fix all the things in the society until we can fix the relationships that are broken or dysfunctional, because out of dysfunctional households come dysfunctional people. Mm-hmm. So if we want the world to be better, then we have to repair what's happening in the household, which means addressing those couples that have created hell. So that brings us to the next issue. We grew up in the era, and our parents before us and their parents before them, the idea that marriage is supposed to be forever. You say a vow before God, and that means you're going to stay with this person forever, for better, for worse, for richer or poorer, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes the social pressure to stay married is so great that even though you might be living in hell in your household and your children are living in hell with you, you feel like it's the noble thing to stay. I've had a number of friends who have stayed in horrible marriages because they thought that was the spiritually correct thing to do. They stayed with somebody who had a substance abuse problem. They stayed with someone who just could not keep a job for whatever emotional defects they had, whether they were always getting angry and cursing out somebody, or just, wouldn't get out of bed, or whatever the case may be. They were dysfunctional, and they stayed with that person, and they were angry with that person, and they talked meanly to that person, but they stayed married, and they felt that this was the correct thing to do because they made a vow to stay married, and they believed that. And yet the children grew up in a household that was horrifying. And many times when children grow up in a household like that, they choose not to get married because they see marriage as that horrible, hellish relationship that you can't get out of. And they just didn't want to repeat that. And I'm seeing that trend in the younger generation more than anything. They saw relationships between their parents that were such hell, and they attributed it to them being married. And so their belief is, if I find someone that I care for, we can get along, we will lovingly choose to stay together rather than get married and recreate that hell that I live with my married parents. That's what I'm seeing as a trend. So, I want to take a look at the idea that marriage is permanent. Should we prepare children for a permanent union, or should we change the ideas about marriage so that people understand it is a harmonious union? And the question is, how do we help people know when a marriage is over? I know we've talked about this on several shows. Last week, Dr. Debbie, who was our Thursday host, did, several series, dealing with a broken heart, dealing with a dysfunctional relationship, your own self-esteem, knowing when you need to get out of a relationship. But a lot of times, because people have had as a model two dysfunctional people who stayed together, even though they acted with such hatred toward each other, because the society frowns so much on divorce, whether for religious reasons or whatever the case may be. But as a result, the children do not want anything to do with marriage because of what they identify it as, this awful, hateful tie that binds you that you can't get out of. And as a result, they don't form the kinds of permanent bonds that give us the foundation of a stable community. And that has an impact, even though it's just that, like you say, they say, well, this is my marriage, this is my relationship. But relationships impact the greater society. So we're going to take another quick break. And then when we come back, I want to ask the question, should we prepare our children for a permanent relationship, or should we prepare them for a healthy relationship that if it shows signs that one party is not able to grow, it's better to let it go? Is that a bad thing to say, well, you may last forever or you may not? Or are we doing our children a disservice by keeping the stigma of divorce so that they feel like they have to stay in a relationship where they're not being treated well? We're going to take a quick break and come back and answer that question. And of course, take your comments on our Facebook and YouTube channel. If you want to join us on Facebook or YouTube, you can go to The Female Solution on Facebook or The Female Solution on YouTube and simply connect with us and write in your comments. If you'd like to call in and be heard, you can call our call-in number 312-721-6428. It's scrolling across the screen. If you want your voice heard, we don't mind talking to you. And we'll be right back after this quick break. So stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
We are back, and I believe we've got our co-host on the screen. Let's bring him in and welcome.
A grand rising. Praise be to Allah. I finally figured out what icon to activate that brought me into the fore.
Figured it out. Here we are. Well, that is wonderful. Well, I'm so grateful. And, you know, we are glad to have multiple platforms where we can offer our viewers a chance to participate, and our listeners, you know, if you want to join us by audio and make your remarks, that number is 312-721-6428. It's scrolling across the screen. And we've got a couple of comments we can share from our loyal viewers and listeners. And of course, regarding the repairing of our psychology, Brother Bay Nelson Drews Ali, yes, Brother Nelson says, psychological reparations in the form of mandated Dianetics auditing conducted by the Nation of Islam. He's been advocating that, and that is one of the ways that people have been able to, I guess, get a scientific review and explanation of their state of mind and mental health. And regarding, you know, one's ability to cook for themselves, he says, I cook all my meals in the same saucepan. That can be a way to save dishes, I guess. And then, of course, when it comes to couples being prepared for both men and women being prepared for taking care of themselves, our viewer Al Husseini Drame says, you're very right. Yes, men should be taught, as well as women should be taught, household management, because it's an adult skill. And regarding cleaning up after yourself, Brother Nelson says, I'm very tidy. My living space, my landmaid's basement is very slightly disordered at the moment. Well, that means, you know, you're the person living there. You got to clean up. No one's going to clean up after you. And he's proposed marriage to someone. And of course, well, I guess sometimes it doesn't work. So you can't always get what you want.
Nothing is guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed.
You know, Naima, concerning divorce, Almighty God have allowed divorce, highly praised be He, so that we are not suffering.
Yes.
We're not suffering. You know, to feel like you're trapped. Like you're trapped. The relationship is very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not valuable to both partners, nor the children or the people that they are connected with. So we have been taught that long suffering is meritorious.
Mm.
You know, just suck it up.
suffering.
I know you're suffering, but I really applaud your stick-to-itiveness. You
Yeah,
mean you're sticking to suffering
yeah,
and being applauded for that?
yeah. Why would you want to?
Well,
Why do we think that that's a good thing? Oh, well, you get your reward by and by in heaven and all that. It
yeah,
is for us
no.
to
You
stop.
need peace. We need peace and security and love right here in this reality in
Mm,
which we live. And if it's not provided in one area, matter of fact, Almighty God says to us in the Quran that if we are in a region or area where we are prohibited from practicing our faith in the hereafter, that will not be an excuse. Well, Lord, they wouldn't allow me. God says, isn't wasn't the earth spacious enough? In other words, go to a better area.
go someplace else that's
And the same as it is
will
with
to
human
me.
beings.
Absolutely.
Why suffer? Why feel trapped when the earth is just it's plenty of people
Absolutely.
all over the earth, and you are stuck with this? No, if there's a limit to suffering, there's a limit to dissatisfaction, and it's not meritorious that you give your whole life to another human being under the guise of suffering.
Mm.
Your
So,
life it is to please Almighty God.
mm,
I'm just saying. I'm no. If it's not working, then hey, move on. Move on. Don't stay there suffering. Male and female. I have known men that have been trapped in marriages that were heinous.
so what makes a person feel trapped like they can't leave? Is it you got children together, you're afraid of going to court and paying child support, you're afraid of what your family's going to say, you don't think you can make it financially, you depend on that other person's income. I mean, what is it that keeps a person trapped in a situation where they're really not happy, not satisfied, or maybe even feeling abused, but they feel like they can't leave? What is it?
It's all of the above that you just named.
Mm,
The idea of visualizing your life without that a person.
mm-hmm.
You know, uh, we are obligated to put ourselves in the best environment, the best situation. No one can do this for us. No
Right,
one.
right.
So you have the freedom not to be trapped and enslaved to another human being. That
Mm,
is you are worshiping that person.
mm.
That's a form of shirk. They become another god in your life. No, we don't have to put up with that. God says that He created the soul and its mate, and from those two scattered countless men and women around the earth. So we have choices, and sometimes we don't know what the result of an act will be.
Mhm.
We'll wonder, well, I wonder how will I be? Well, the result is not up to us anyway. Step out on faith. Have the courage to free yourself and that person, because evidently they are miserable too. So I'm not for that marriage forever. No, that's not the situation God desires for us. The verbiage that's used in marriage vows has been transposed from a declaration of faith, and they place that as part of the marriage vows. Sickness and in health, rich or poor, I stick to my faith. I
So
love Almighty God no
you
matter what the.
well, see, that's the thing. I think the vows,
Mhm.
which religious institutions uh, they emphasize, particularly the "till death do you part." So you stay there and stay there and stay there. even when the love has died. Stay there anyway. And that's when people start to treat each other badly. Like you mentioned, you're talking about your spouse with such contempt, and yet you're staying there. Well, if the love is gone, why are you still there? Because it's not enhancing you spiritually. And if the whole purpose is to improve your relationship with your creator,
Mm-hmm.
then it's actually a detriment in that regard, because you have a feeling of resentment and hatred in your heart sometimes, which how can you have a loving environment when you resent the person that you're living with and you dislike them? And I've seen people even avoid going home, or find excuses to always be gone, whether they, go on trips all the time or working late or whatever it is. They don't want to be in the house with that person,
Right.
and yet they will not leave the marriage because of social pressure and maybe even religious pressure.
Or financial pressure.
And often it's financial pressure. This person's job is what makes it possible to pay the bills without stress. If they weren't contributing, then I would have to work harder, maybe get a second job or whatever. It's cheaper to keep her, that kind of thing. So, should the expectation that we give our children about marriage be different? Should we give them different standards to look for when finding a mate? Uh, with women, a lot of times their mothers told, find you somebody with some money. Uh, Men told, well, get you a pretty woman or whatever it is. But it whatever advice we're giving, it isn't working to have lasting, healthy relationships, or relationships that are healthy as long as they can last. So, what should we be telling our children that will honestly prepare them for the reality of marriage, and to help it last as long as it can last, and to have the wisdom to know when to leave when it's time for it to end?
Mm-hmm. Yes. There's an ending to everything. Life itself.
Yeah.
So to tie one to another individual, and they dedicate. It's almost like a religious experience. Now I dedicate myself to the relationship, to the formula that God has designed, but not to you as a human being. God has set the parameters and the so-called rules and standards. I'm committed to that. But to you as flesh and blood, I cannot I cannot go to that level of dedication to you. That is only reserved for the Creator Himself. When you become too much of a pain to me, too much suffering, I'm enduring too much suffering, I'm obligated to free myself, to have the freedom to live once again. To live is to have freedom and to be able to express and grow. So God wouldn't lock us into a toxic relationship forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. No, that's not the loving God. He gives us the option. The earth is spacious, and God has created a soulmate for everyone. Continue looking, or either the soulmate may find you.
Absolutely.
But don't stay. Don't come. I'll drink muddy water, sleep in a hollow log. Before I dedicate myself to someone that doesn't mean me any good.
Oh, wow.
Come on, y'all. So I know it's the fear.
It's fear.
The fear. But you have to have faith. You have to have faith. Life is not designed that we suffer. We have problems and we overcome them. But some problems are so massive and so deep that you have to just step away from them, shake the dust off your feet, and find a better form of life for yourself. You're obligated to do that. Your own self obligates you. God says your own self obligates you So
Yeah.
I'm not for that stay together forever and ever and ever and ever. No.
Mm.
If you're suffering and in pain, God provided an outlet for us. Divorce.
So no, I had a friend that I've been I guess listening to for a while, going through a painful relationship, and she's, you know, dedicated, religious person, believing that if she prays, God will change her husband. Well, they've been together, you know, more than 15 years, and the behaviors of her husband have not gotten better. And, you know, she's becoming bitter in a sense of, you know, saying the little mean things, the little hostile remarks that indicate harboring resentment. And the marriage is not a happy one. Uh, their children are experiencing the unhappiness of the parents, even though they're religious, but they're not loving toward each other at all. And it seems more like an obligation, you know, we stay together because this is what you're supposed to do. And the woman who feels that she's a very godly woman says, well, I'm praying and God will change him. And if I pray and all of that. And she's been advocating that to other women. But I don't see a change. And I don't see it being a healthy environment for her children. Uh, you know, at what point, you know, when you've been with someone and they are hurtful to you emotionally, uh, they create an environment of unease for the children, a lot of anger, no peace, no sense of peace, and there's general unhappiness. At what point does a person throw in the towel? How many years do you try to make it work? Now, I've heard, okay, it takes at least the first 5 years to maybe undo the bad habits that you learned from your own parents and learn how to be nice to each other if you didn't grow up in a household where people were nice. It takes at least 5 years. That's what I'm told. And then maybe if you can make it for the 5 years and then you see improvement, then you can begin to think in terms of, you know, long term, maybe permanent or whatever. But after more than 15 years, the same issues, matter of fact, probably even gotten worse. And I don't see joy, but I see dedication based on our religion says that you stay. That doesn't, and if you know what has happened, I've seen her children kind of reject religion.
Uh-huh.
That's what they attributed to. Religion means you suffer. I don't want to be religious.
Thank you. Can you say that once more? For real, I hope everyone get this here. That religion is not designed for suffering.
Yes.
Religion is designed to relieve suffering.
Yes.
It's not a painful process.
Yes.
Yes, we have problems and tribulations and all of that, but it is not provided to cause pain and suffering for the human being. Man comes up with concepts, man-made concepts that are very laborious when it comes connected with religion, where you must do this, you must do that. Well, you know, going through something enriches you, but the other side of going through it is a reward. Where is the reward of putting up with someone that you're totally opposites? You totally always at each other's throats. We cannot change. We think, well, I'll change him.
It doesn't work.
God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's the part that people
I may not can change her, but the wisdom, but I can change myself.
Right.
God says, never do he improve the condition of a people until they first change what is bothering their soul,
Yes.
what is bothering their self. And one more, then I'm through. The self is called the nafs
Mm-hmm.
in Quranic language, the nafs. And psyche, psychiatry, that is connected with your soul.
Yes.
They are trying to repair your soul. So we have to have the courage to give our soul the best environment. It's relying on us to provide the best environment for me. But
Yes.
there's so much I have yet to give you. I'm just saying.
Yes.
You owe it to yourself.
You owe it to yourself. I've seen people suffer out of fear that if they leave this relationship, they'll be alone, and might be fear of being alone, fear of finding someone else, fear of not being able to take care of themselves, fear of if they're part of a religious community, fear of the gossip. So I had a friend of mine is going through difficulty, fear of religious gossip because, uh, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they raise their children in a very religious home, and their daughter, in her teen years, got a boyfriend against the wishes of her parents, who were very strict religious people. And the daughter got pregnant, and the mother was very angry and wanted to put the daughter out of the house. They argued. The daughter did move in with the boyfriend for a while, then ended up moving back home. And in the course of an argument, the daughter basically said, well, at least in my relationship we love each other, which was kind of indicating that she didn't see any love between her parents. A lot of religion, not a lot of love.
Thank you.
And so when she was seeking a love relationship with someone who the male was not religious at all, but he was someone who made her feel loved,
Right.
she felt like this is what love feels like. It doesn't feel like what I see in my parents.
Yeah.
So, because she's a minor and everything, and they're struggling with that whole legal issue of, she's a minor, he's a minor, he doesn't have a job. How's he going to deal with child support? I guess he, hustles up money or whatever, but they weren't able to maintain their apartment that he tried to provide for her. And I think he's over 18 now, and she's 17, whatever the case may be. But she wants to live with him, but they don't have the financial means. Her parents are making her feel very unwelcome in the home because of the means whereby she ended up with a child. It was outside of their religion, and they're feeling the shame and all of that. And in trying to counsel her and him or provide some suggestions, I said, well, what if you all were supportive of them as parents and helped them so that your grandchild would have a more loving environment? And her response was that she didn't want to condone what her daughter had done because, she's got two other younger sisters coming after her, and she doesn't want them to imitate her example. So I see this family going through difficulty, but not understanding that the very harsh, unloving environment that they created is what their daughter sought to escape. And I've seen this in many very religious households where there is strict religion, but very little love, and a very unloving kind of behavior toward the parents, toward each other, that the children don't want to emulate in their own relationships. So how does a couple face the reality of what they have created in their household and work to repair it. Just being married isn't enough. What are you creating in your home, and what are children learning based on how you're treating each other? And if you have a child that is totally rejecting your religion, then they do the usual thing, oh, blame it on the devil. Oh, well, the devil is busy. The devil talking to my child. The devil got my, well, maybe that devil isn't coming from outside the home. Maybe that devil is what is coming from inside the people in the home.
Say that. Yes. Yes.
Manifesting in the way they treat each other. So how do parents face the reality of what they have inside themselves that is affecting their children? Is it possible when people think, well, we're religious and we do this and this and this, and we raise them in our religious faith and blah blah blah? How do parents face a truth about themselves that might be painful so that they can strive to create a more loving environment?
There is a misnomer, Naima. Some people believe, well, once they accept a religion, be it whatever religion it is, that everything is going to be okay.
Mm.
Everything is going my way.
Yeah.
Every traffic light will be green. I'll find the excellent parking spot in the mall. That's a misrepresentation of having a life of faith. God says, think not that you're saying you believed is enough, and think not that you will not be tested.
Yes.
When those that came before you was tested similarly. So it is how to deal with. Religion is a better prescription of how to deal with the multitude of complex problems that will be presented to us. As I've said earlier, we need to get on God's clock and get off of man's clock. At one time, a 15-year-old woman was able to get married and have a husband
He was an
and
adult.
raise her children. But we have an artificial clock. And then also the grandparents was a great support with the young fledgling household. Just because we have raised our children and they're grown, we think parenting is over. Oh no. Never. You never stop being a parent. Never.
Absolutely.
That's the truth. So we have to, for a young man that thought he could afford the apartment and all of that, her father needs to help him. Her father needs to help him.
Now that makes sense. And I believe that, but well, the young man is not somebody her father approved of. He doesn't follow the religious faith. His father's angry at him, all of those things. But the reality is he's a young man who was trying. And I believe that the parents should be more supportive. See, they're stuck on she got pregnant out of wedlock. They're stuck on that, sin and all this business. So they're stuck there.
That child is not an illegitimate child.
Right.
That is a reality.
Yes.
That is a legitimate human being. Yes. So let's create the best environment. Let's take the focus off of ourselves and look at this new life that has been placed in our midst. That's so important. And who haven't made mistakes? Stop, mama. Stop, daddy. You was 15. Come on now. Let's get real. Stop. Like you never made a mistake.
So
you never stepped outside the border. Stop. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is so essential. And mercy. We should ask God, oh, mighty God, increase me in knowledge and mercy.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the artificial clock that's based on an artificial system. Okay, you need to finish high school, and then you need to go to college, and then you need to get a job. So we're delaying adulthood for too long. I believe we're delaying adulthood for too long. We're not allowing our adult children to become adults when they have become adults.
Right.
We're putting all of these obstacles in their way, and then we're expecting them to wait this inordinate amount of time before they find a mate.
Yeah.
And it's not working.
It's not working.
There are so many young women who have children, and they're maybe in their 20s and 30s, and the relationship that they had was not the relationship that lasted, but
it was just physical,
it was physical, and they were not prepared to make it a permanent relationship. So now when they get to the point of maturity where they're ready to make it a permanent relationship, they come with a ready-made family and previous relationships, because every child is tied to their father, even if the relationship with the father is not there. So then you've got a man who's coming into a ready-made family. He may have already made a family himself. So we've got more blended families, and all of the emotions that come with that. You're supposed to try to make sure that you treat their children from another relationship like yours, and they treat your children from another relationship like theirs. Some couples are able to do this. Some couples struggle with it.
Right.
And it would be better if we prepared our children for adulthood earlier, emotional adulthood. Yes, you are. You're gonna evolve, and you might grow into a different direction, and you may not be the same person you were when you were first with that first love, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But at least, rather than us delaying adulthood and not preparing our children on how to manage a household, how to take care of themselves, how to cook, clean, wash clothes,
how to be a mate,
how to be responsible in your workplace, all those things, a responsible adulthood, preparing them when they physically become an adult. They need to be emotionally adult. They need to be vocationally adult. They need to be, in terms of their household management skills, they need to be adult, so that all the adulthood happens at the same time, and therefore it makes sense. So if they find someone and say, well, you're too young to know you're in love, well, you're the age that you are.
Love is one of the strongest emotions that the human being has been given. No doubt about that.
So why not allow our children to form that partnership early enough in life and help them grow together so that there can be stability? And be the financial support if necessary, because they are young, and it does require extended family support. Why not do that instead of delaying adulthood so long that you've had multiple broken relationships, and then you have to try to mend all of that together when you and another person finally get to a point where you think, financially, now I'm ready to get married. I think that would make so much more sense. Well, we got to take our last break.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about that, and got a couple of comments here. What about if we let our 15-year-olds begin to think in terms of finding a mate?
And marriage.
What would happen if we did that culturally? Let's think about that. And we want to hear your comments. If you want to call in, 312-721-6428, or if you want to add your comments to our Facebook or YouTube channel, just write them in. We'll share them with our viewing audience, and we'll be right back after this short break. So stick and stay. Don't stray away. We want to hear your comments. Would you let your 15-year-old get married if they said, look, I found the person of my dreams, I'm in love, and we're ready to get together, start a family? Can you help us out with some money? How would you feel about that? We'll be right back. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif, and if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, People are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, child care services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.
And we are back. You're listening to and watching the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. I'm Naima Latif. And of course, we invite you to go to our website, www.thefemalesolution.com, and you keep up with every host every day and select whichever multiple platforms you want to see or hear us live, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time, Saturday, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time on Sundays. And we invite you to join the conversation and be a part of the solution. So I'm here with my Wednesday co-host, Kareem Hamid, and we've been talking about the roles of men and women. Are they changing, and do we need to be changing how we prepare our children for adulthood? Realizing that physically, we go through puberty, 12, 13, 14, we go through puberty, 15, by then we, raging hormones and all of that. Should we prepare our teenagers for adulthood so that by the time they're physically adults, they're able to be socially adults as well? And should we allow them to marry at 15 the way they did back in the old days? So what do you think?
Thousands of years.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands of years.
The human body hasn't changed in thousands of years. We got an artificial clock that we're trying to follow and it's not working. It's not working.
No.
It's not working. So now we got this shame blame culture. Your 15-year-old gets pregnant. Then half the time you're angry and ashamed and you want to throw her out the house. I've known people who've done that. Oh, you think you're a woman? Well, get out. Okay, so she moves in with the boyfriend and she's estranged and your grandchild's suffering and all of that.
Yeah.
You got the young man and he's gotten a couple of women pregnant and nobody's giving him guidance on, what do I do with this drive that I have? Well, I can practice on some girls, and if I get access to them, and then
here we go.
There we go. You got children. You got the court system, child support, everything, and his life ends up being a mess before it gets started because no one said, okay, now that you're of age, it's time for you to prepare to become a husband and father. No one directs that drive in that direction. They just say, sow your wild oats and
just have fun. Party. Have fun.
She should have been on birth control. We have set our families up for disaster. We have set our children up for disaster because we have not given them a game plan that works. We have not prepared them for a family that they can work on building and strengthening over time so that there is stability for the children. We have not prepared them. And so they don't. And now we've got this mess of dysfunction, and children growing up today, they say, what do I need to get married for? Look at the mess that my parents made of their lives and our lives. No, I'm just gonna get somebody I love. We gonna hook up and be together, and then when it's over, it's over. And if I have a baby by him or if I got her pregnant, oh well.
What about the blood ties? The rights of inheritance, division of property.
There is
all of that.
So everybody ends up starting out with nothing because nobody planned a future where they were passing on property and wealth and skills or any of those things. So every generation starting out with nothing.
Nothing. Zero.
And that's why there's so much extreme poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to change the game plan. We have to change our thoughts. The idea of waiting and waiting and waiting till you get all the financial things in place, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work. It doesn't. You know, there's a situation called apprenticeship. And at one time, men utilized that. In whatever trade they had,
Yes.
they would teach someone coming behind them. We are grateful for for what we have now. It is mentorship. And the wonderful brothers in Chicago that I have spoken with over the air, they are doing an excellent job of mentoring. We can capture them where they are. We don't have to give up on our young men and our young women.
Absolutely.
We never stop being parents.
You never stop. Absolutely. Well, we've got a caller on the line. And can you give us your name and where you're calling from? And what do you think about letting our 15-year-olds become husbands and wives when their bodies say it's time to find a mate? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is Bianchi.
Hey, Bianchi.
Hey, Bianchi.
Yeah, something else. Take on responsibilities at no 15 years of age.
Yeah.
Well, you can be, but you've been around cultures around the world. You know, there are places where people are allowed to become adults when they're physically adults. Don't you think that can be taught?
Well, those places around the world does not have a complicated society like we live in today. Complicated and demanding. Demanding especially of what it is that you need to know to be established and successful in this society. And when it comes along the area of skill attainment and academic derivatives, it takes a longer time to gain that. For a student to go through the process of what we call a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD, that takes time, but it's not new. Even back in the ancient times, Ancient Kemet, they went to school for 40 years for those who it was assigned to. It takes time.
Okay, so now let me throw this thought out there, because we've all been through grammar school and high school. At the end of high school, is anything that you learned, was any of it really relevant to your survival? The things that you need to know how to do, like how to acquire an apartment, pay rent, get your electricity and your gas hooked up and pay those bills, open a bank account, even if you're in business, how to sell something and earn enough money so that you can pay your expenses, how to buy clothes, how to wash clothes, how to wash dishes, how to clean a floor. Were any of those household maintenance skills or self-maintenance skills in terms of your finances, was any of that taught in the 12 years you went to school? And if not, then are those 12 years of school even necessary for you to be an adult?
I went to a trade high school called O'Fallon Tech. Me and others, yes, when we came out, we was able to go into the real world and perform employment. The other things that you mentioned, I was taught at home. My grandmother taught me how to cook, and my grandson, his papa, know how to cook.
See?
So that's something then that should be taught at home and can be taught at home. And you don't need a college degree to learn how to wash dishes. So if people taught their children household management skills at an early age, like when you start walking and talking, you should learn how to do some basic skills, like Kareem was saying earlier, teach your children how to separate the clothes by colors when they're like, 3 and 4 years old and they're learning colors. Little things that you can teach at home. Your child shouldn't have to wait till they're 18 before they become a grown man and woman. Their body's already saying they're a grown man and woman. So rather than panicking when your 14-year-old expresses some sexual interest, start preparing them to be an adult and giving them the vision that whoever you meet that you feel that you are in harmony with, be prepared to take care of yourself as an adult. Don't you think that's possible? If a person is 15, 16 years old, they can learn how to do some basic household management and even financial management?
Well, yes, children are married at 12 years, 13 years old because they were more suited for the responsibility during that time in history, even in this country. But things have changed, and I agree with you. The things need to come to a halt, and they need to rewind the clock. The clock needs to rewind for those who want to, and go back to that old time, quote unquote, religion.
Sometimes the religion is the obstacle.
No, that old time religious way of doing things. The responsibility that was given to children so that they could acclimate their self into being able to take on responsibility when they become an adult. My daughter was not just going to marry anybody.
Well, that's true. So,
and Kareem, if I'm not mistaken, you got daughters too, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Daughters.
Let me say this. You mentioned going back to that old time religion, which is very key. I'm not talking about a building somewhere where we go and sing and worship. That old time religion, our original human nature, a female matures. Well, let me say, at 15, God created that. That is a design that he created. And at one time, the human being coalesced around that natural growth. They prepared for what was already innate, naturally placed within the young man or the young child. That is religion at its core. It's not the rituals that we perform and all of that's fine. But the original religion is housed within us. If my daughter, her ovaries will do what they do. Her hormones will do what they do. Who created that? Yeah. Who designed that? Isn't that a pattern upon which we should plan our lives?
It definitely makes sense.
I hear what you're saying, Kareem, but you have to face the fact.
Wait a minute. I'm not speaking of. But
your son, 15 years old.
I'm not speaking of as things exist now. We know.
So how do we plan?
We know we're way off.
So how do we plan? And also, well, Brother Nelson on our Facebook, our YouTube channel says, I contend the age maturity, 15, and the age of consent should be and shall be deemed one and the same. So right now, if a person gets a 15-year-old girl pregnant and he's 18, that could be considered statutory rape. So unless we change that age of consent to 15, and what would happen if we did? Would people be afraid that suddenly their 15-year-old daughters would start getting pregnant as if they're not?
15 and 18 is not statutory rape. There's a greater distance the law requires. But see, you live in a society where a 15-year-old cannot engage a contract. When you go out and sign up for an apartment or car, you are engaging in a contract, and a 15-year-old is not considered old enough in this society to, by themselves, to engage in contracts. So you have to look at the times that you're living in. The society majority determines that a 18-year-old should not be marrying a 12-year-old unless the court and the parent agree upon it. That's just the way it is.
So should we then make it so that parents can offer support, say if their 15-year-old wants to marry and get an apartment, that their parents can co-sign for them until they reach the age of maturity, which is 18?
You can do that now, but a parent have to want to do that. See, these things you're talking about, ain't nothing stopping people from doing those things today.
They just don't know, Bianca.
And the belief that you're too young to start a family, which doesn't make any sense if you have 15-year-olds getting pregnant. Well, obviously they've started a family. So we in our thought have made it illegitimate for them to be adults when in fact they have chosen to be adults, but they have not been prepared with responsibility. So one thing you mentioned, Bianchi, was the finances, whereas our 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are not equipped to function financially as adults, and yet they can get jobs and earn money.
They don't earn enough money, though. That's what the problem is. They don't earn enough money because they haven't attained enough education in order for them to qualify for those high-paying and high-salary jobs. I knew my grandson was not adult worthy to raise a family at no 18 years of age because I know him.
He wasn't prepared, my brother.
Because there are people who run businesses with their families.
My grandson was not prepared to be running a family. Right. He was just like when he went to LSU, and he thought he was prepared to make the big team. Mm-hmm. He was not. He could make the smaller team, the travel team, but he was not prepared to make the big team. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Who was responsible for?
Never majored. I knew he was prepared to carry 2 majors, which he did. I knew he's prepared to do a master's and a PhD, which he's working on, but he was not prepared to run no family.
So who was supposed to prepare him for that? Whose job was that? The school was not going to do that. Whose job was it to prepare him to
when the time is right? Then
See, that's what I contend is making a mistake. We're not doing the job that we should be doing when the time is right. We're delaying it, and then we expect it to just suddenly happen. And our children are in their 30s, and they still don't know how to function in a family because we never taught them. But we could have taught them when they were 12 so that they would know when they were 30.
30 years of age. I didn't get married until I was about, I forget what age. I didn't have a kid until I was about 25, 26.
Yeah. And had you been taught how to be a father, or was it on the job training?
I knew it wasn't the time for it. See, I didn't take my wife, my 10-year-old neighborhood sweetheart, away from her mama until I could provide her everything that she was used to having and more.
Okay.
That's intelligent.
So you had the finances, and that's good. What about the behaviors in the household, the cooperation, the household management? Who taught you those skills, and at what age did you learn those skills? Did you learn them before 25, or you didn't learn them until you became 25?
I learned them from one of the greatest teachers there is. It's called common sense.
Okay.
And mother wit. And mother wit.
Mother wit. Well, you learn mother wit from watching your mother.
I've never seen a day when we didn't have no food in the refrigerator. Matter of fact, my grandfather I came in the house to get water after playing. I used to see a white family sitting at the kitchen table eating because he brought them in and fed them as they began to travel on their way. That's what I learned from observation.
Okay.
And every now and then a smack on the butt.
Well, if you believe that helped. Well, we got another comment. Deborah, our third Saturday host, says, Grand Rising, all age does not equate to equal level of maturity. That is true. That is true. And she says they're not prepared because of lack in education. And, that's something to think about when we talk about how you're preparing your child for adulthood. That's not something that comes out of the school system. That's something that comes out of the home. And Robert Young says, of course, there's gender confusion in today's society, deliberately to confuse the youth. And that's another whole show in itself.
Yeah.
And Deborah says, we talk about having generational wealth. So if a 15-year-old has the wealth and skills, are they ready for a family? Well, that's a question that I believe the Smiths answered. Jada and Will, when their son had made a lot of money and he wanted to be emancipated. I think he was 15, 16 years old. And they said, well, he's got money. So what's to keep him from being a mature, independent adult?
Money doesn't bring that about.
And Nelson says children should ideally marry in their 20s and 30s. So
that's the ideal, but that's
the
not
ideal.
Rational for me.
And then the question is, are they prepared? I mean, supposedly they're mature. They've got some education behind them, but I'm still seeing relationships fall apart because they were not prepared. They were not taught how to be husband and wife. It doesn't just fall into place, with common sense. There has to be a teaching. And if that doesn't happen, doesn't matter how old you are, you're still not going to be ready.
How do a daughter know what to look for in a husband if she has never witnessed it played out between a mother and a father? You don't know.
You don't know. If you can't see it, you can't be it. So that's the challenge that we have. Taking our culture into the future and preparing for stable families means we have to plan in a way that prepares them for a successful relationship.
That's why the daughter come back with trash bags, clothes, and dragging kids to the house because something wasn't done right.
That happens. And Robert Young says women don't have a place. That's American mistake. Men and women work together idealistically. Yes, well, that's the ideal. We have to teach them partnership. We have to teach them cooperation.
Socialization.
That's what it takes.
Well,
that's we have to socialize them to be family. And I believe that we can start a lot earlier in teaching our sons and daughters how to be adult men and women and be married, raise a family, take care of a household. And if they are taught, then we can get rid of this artificial time clock that says they have to wait till they have a doctorate degree before they can finally find a mate.
It's not artificial now. It is real. The thing is this: start your child off as young as possible, and get them in the mindset to go ahead and climb those academic mountains as early as possible. Because once you have to take on those responsibilities, your brain don't work like it did when you was 18.
That's true.
Anyway.
That's true. It takes a while for your brain to mature. And Viata, our Friday host, says, my father grew up in New Orleans late 1920s and often had no food to eat. He lived a healthy life for 95 years, drawing wisdom from all his experiences. Then he taught it to others. And back in the day, yes, people they struggled together and they made it. And Nelson says there are some 15 to 16-year-olds who may be in a situation in which marriage may be appropriate with a comparably aged spouse. And that is something to consider. Robert Young says our people should show our children a united front.
It begins in the home.
It begins in the home. Well, it's time to go. We thank you so much, Bianchi, for joining us. And we thank all of you for listening in and of course, writing in. And we will be back tomorrow on Thursday. We're going to introduce you to our lineup for 2024. We're so excited and we're looking forward to you joining us. As always, thank you to my wonderful co-host, Kareem Hamid. We're so excited, and thank you for all of your men-only discussions that helped us women learn a little bit more so that we can make better choices in our own lives and we can have more compassion for our men. Thank you so very much. And we will see you all tomorrow on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And until that time, continue to shine your light.
Hi, I'm Naima Latif. And if you're watching this, that means you're one of the 4.6 billion people from around the world who are using an electronic device to talk to people. In these times, people are using the internet to talk to everybody. Friends, neighbors, family members, co-workers. People are on their cell phones and computers all day long. Now, if you're in business, that is great news. That means you can sell your products and services all day long and never have to leave your home. All you need is a media connection, somebody to connect you to an audience. And that's why I'm talking to you today. We produce programs, and our audience members are people who shop. They buy clothes, food, beauty supplies, cleaning supplies, home repair, transportation services, childcare services. Whatever you're selling, they need to buy it. We're your media connection. Just follow this link, and tomorrow you can sit back and relax at home while your business is making you money.